Welcome back to the Campbell Show by Dane Campbell for Dane Campbell, everything related to Dane Campbell. Today we're talking about some questions about Native Son, which is Dane Campbell's favorite book. First question, was Mary's death accidental or was it a murder?
Alright, so what I think is that Baker's intention was to actually murder her. Like, in some sense it was an accident, but he did have like the true intent of actually killing her.
I kind of disagree. I'm more of the idea that it was just an in-the-moment thing. He wasn't even thinking about it. I know after the fact, maybe he had those thoughts, but in the moment, I think it was just an accident.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I think that is because, like, in, like, the earlier chapters on, like, pages 106, it's, like, he's, like, really descriptive with, like, the murder, how he's saying, like, though he had killed her by accident, not once did he feel the need to tell himself that had been accident. So it just shows, like, how, like, he didn't feel guilty about it, and, like, the reason why he thought, like, he doesn't see it as an accident was because he just always, like, it's about, like, racism and just how white people are always going to be racist towards black people, that it doesn't really matter what he says, that he's always going to be at fault. And also, later on, he keeps describing and saying, no, it was no accident. He would never say that it was. So, like, again, it's just, like, maybe at the beginning he did feel guilty about it, but, like, later on, he kind of felt joy in murdering her and actually, like, doing it and just hiding her body and everything. So I feel like it, in some way it is accidental, but, like, it's more of, like, an actual murder that he did on purpose. So, like, he meant to kill her.
Yeah, I think after the fact, he definitely did, like, almost relish it. Like, he was very glad he did kill her. But, like, in the moment, like you said, he was full of fear, like, during the actual murder scene. And after the fact, he was like, oh my God, what did I just do? I have to hide this. Because, he was, like, scared of the law and everything. He knew what would happen. He knew what he just did in the eyes of the law. Like, he was basically a dead man. He was going to lose everything. And then, like, the second part of that wants to know if, did he act smart in the way that he hid the body and concealed his crime? And I think in context, with all the adrenaline running through him and how he was just, like, doing whatever he could in the moment, it was, like, a really good plan. He remembered that Mary was supposed to go on a trip, so he used that to his advantage, so they wouldn't even question that Mary was gone. They might wonder, like, oh, why didn't you say anything? But, they would just assume she left because, Mary's been known to be an interesting character, to say the least.
Yeah, I also agree. Like, I feel like reading the book, like, I thought, oh, like, he's actually thought it out. Like, he thought, like, she knew where she was going to go and everything, like, the day after. So it was, like, really perfectly planned. And he honestly could have gotten away with it. I think just, like, at the point of, like,
he was so stupid afterward where he just, like, wow, this is pretty good. Maybe I'll just have the ransom in.
Like, he could have just, like, okay, yeah, like, maybe not murder her, obviously, but, like, he already did kill her, so, like, afterwards left the state or whatever, he could have actually gone away with it. And, like, his plan was smart, like, the way, like, of, like, clearing her body, make sure everything was clean. He did have, like, a really smart plan, but just, like, I think it just got to him and he was acting cocky about it, and so it just got to him, and that's how he went to jail.
Yeah, and that connects to, like, the third part of the question, where it's like, does he have a way he could have gotten out of the situation? Like, he did have that way. He could have gotten out of the situation, but he felt all cocky, he felt confident, he was so proud of himself for what he did afterwards. Even though I think it was an accident, like I said, he was still proud of it afterwards. He was glad he did it. He didn't have regrets about it, even though it was an accident. And he brought himself back in with the ransom though. So that's what eventually led to him getting caught. So I think if he didn't do that, he definitely could have gotten away with it.
Yeah, and even, like, if he didn't, like, since he didn't run away, it's, like, right away, with the, like, detective and everything, he's made him believe that he was innocent. He blamed it on Jen, and it was actually a good plan, but just, like, how he was acting so, like, full of himself that, like, it just didn't work out for him, because then they started, like, suspecting stuff from him and thinking, oh, maybe he could have murdered her.
Second question. I think blindness is, like, one of the most major ideas in the story. Not, like, just the literal blindness that, like, Miss Dalton has, but, like, the figurative blindness, which, if I were to define it, I would say is, like, closing yourself off from the truth. Like, you refuse to see it. Like, you deny everything in face of, like, all the facts, which I think a lot of characters do. Like, I think are especially feeded by their emotions rather than just, like, all the actual info that's in front of them, and that kind of creates a blindness and, like, makes them almost misguided in what they think is right, which I think you can argue for a lot of characters.
Yeah, I also agree with just, like, it's not just like the literal meaning of blindness, because like through Bigger's perspective, you see how he also called Bessie blind in a way that like the way she follows society and just everything, like the rules, and like unlike him, he's the one like trying to leave and get away from this murder. He's trying to like drag her along, and he's just like calling her names, saying that she's just being blind and like not following him like lead for some reason. Like he just thinks she's being blinded by like society, and just like because he still blames society for like racism and believes that like, oh, everything's always goes back to racism, and it's just that's why he's always targeted and not like for murdering a girl. And also I also believe that Bigger in a sense is blind because like I guess like through all of this he still believes he's a good guy. Like he thinks what he did was right in some way, and he feels joy in like this whole murder, believing that like getting away like will fix the problem, and that like just blaming it on racism that white people don't like black people is the reason why he would get in trouble and never go to jail. Like he doesn't actually believe that like actually murdering her was the reason why he should have been to jail.
And then kind of on the flip side of that, I feel like I think what you're saying is right, but it also goes to the other half of the population, like to the elite of society, which is very blind, especially in like the very end of the book when Max is questioning the Daltons. We kind of see how the Daltons are blind. Like Bigger has always been talking about it, but when Max questions them, we really see it, because Max is like, oh, you consider yourself a very charitable man. You feel like you have a good relationship with black people, like you're always donating to them. And Dalton agrees. He's like, yes, I do consider myself that. But then Max goes further and he's like, well, even though you're giving them ping pong tables, that doesn't help with the root of their societal problems. Like, don't you own the buildings they live in? Don't you charge them more? Don't you force them into these areas? And Dalton's kind of like speechless. Like he still considers himself charitable, but like in spite of these factual evidence, he's like, oh no, well, you see, and then he can't give an actual explanation as to why he does this stuff. He closed that part of himself off. He refuses to accept it as the truth because it would hurt his own consciousness almost. Like he sees himself as a good man, but he still has to do these things in his mind. He thinks he has to do these things to the black population, and he's just blind.
Of our discussion on Native Son by Richard Wright.
Very sad, I know.
On the Campbell Show, and we'd like to thank Campbell for inviting us here and just talking about the whole book. And we also like to thank our audience, actually.
Oh, they left.
They're
Sorry.
gone. We'll end
all
the
your
show.
Fans. Oh, they're back. They love you, Mr. Campbell.
They really do.
All right, that's it. I kind of gotta go home and stuff, so.
Yep, homework. More Campbell.
I gotta work on your final, Mr. Campbell.
Yep, let's do that.
I love it so much. I love you so much. Bye, Mr. Campbell.
Bye, Mr. Campbell.